Welcome to the Real Talk Retirement Show, where we explore the financial side of retirement and beyond. Whether you're currently retired or planning for the future, we offer real, relatable conversations about money and personal finances. Most importantly, we dive into all these topics using real talk. Now, let's get real about your money and your retirement.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Real Talk Retirement Show. We are Brian Graff and Tracy Burke, back with you from Conrad Siegel. And today we are going to discuss the topic of what to do with your 401k when you retire. Super important. I think everybody knows that 401k plans have certainly become the most common workplace retirement plan these days. And, people spend their entire careers, hopefully, saving money in these plans. And, that's kind of the easy part, just putting money away, paycheck after paycheck, letting it do its thing in the market. But then one day you retire. And, Tracy, now what?
Yeah, and first of all, it should be an exciting time, right? Retirement's what you've been building up to, but then as you mentioned, what to do with your 401k, that can be a big decision. There's multiple things that can be impacted. Taxes, what fees are going to be, general flexibility, how to create income while in retirement. So, our viewers have heard us say this before. What we're going to talk about is not a one size fits all, right? There's a lot of factors at play. So, just to set the stage a little bit, imagine a gentleman named Joe.
Yeah.
So Joe's standing at the edge of a forest trail, and for the past 35 years, he's walked a path, steady, predictable, always moving forward. And on his back, for this hike, in a sense, he's been carrying a backpack, and it's well packed, and basically it's his 401k on his back, right? So it's full of gear that he's collected over the years. It's investments, the contributions he's put in, the employer matches, all those type of things. But now, after this 35-year journey, he's reached a fork in the trail, and before heading on to this next stage of his journey. So he has multiple options. Does he go left? Does he go right? Does he take that center path? Many different options. So again, that story, just sort of sets up that practicality or the emotional crossroads that a lot of retirees face within their 401k. Again, what to do with it when they retire. So again, today we're going to break down what options, folks have. And then also we're going to tee up, I think it's 4 or 5 questions that the people should ask themselves that can helpfully lead to the most proper decision for them.
Yeah, great, Tracy. I like that story about Joe in the forest. I'm glad he had a backpack, not like a fanny pack. That might not fit a lot of 401k assets in there. But yeah, let's go through those options and kind of take them one by one. Option number one when you retire is, the option of taking a full cash distribution from your account. So that means basically you withdraw your entire balance in your account and you get immediate access to all that money. Send me a check. Super enticing, right? But this typically does come with a significant tax impact, except for maybe any Roth money you have in that account. So I think with that in mind, it probably goes without saying that a cash distribution option is typically the least tax efficient route to go. And lots of your money may go to the IRS. And Tracy, nobody wants that, do they?
For sure.
So basically, if you don't need access to this money right away, and if you plan correctly, hopefully you don't, we'll go over some other options here. So then we have option number two, which is just to simply leave your money in the plan. If your workplace retirement plan allows it, and honestly, most do by law, as long as you meet the minimum account balance requirement, you can just leave your money right there in the 401k plan. And that can really be a simple, straightforward option for a lot of people. And it might certainly be easy just to not to do anything at all, but you do want to make sure that you understand the plan, how the fees work, the different investment options that you're in, and just how comfortable you are managing the account and distributions from that workplace retirement plan in retirement. I will also note that eventually you will need to start taking some money out of your workplace retirement plan with what we call required minimum distributions starting at age 73. The IRS wants their cut at some point. So they say you need to start at age 73, or by the way, age 75 is kind of the new RMD start date if you were born in 1960 or after. Tracy, anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, with this leave it in the plan option, that's probably the easy route, right? Most employers do prefer to get you out of the plan. So when you retire, and I know it's maybe something we don't always think through, but a lot of employers do want, their retirees to move out, and it might be saving them real costs. If there's fees involved that the company in particular is paying to providers, or also can reduce administrative burdens. Of course, within this option, as you sort of said, there are laws out there that require employers to keep retirees, but there's also laws out there that 401k providers, or what we call plan sponsor, the employer, can set up their own, their set of rules within parameters, right? So the employers really set the rules, of course, in the 401k, and sometimes, we'll see there's restrictions on distributions, meaning that sometimes you just can't take what you want from the account when you want it. You
Right.
might be forced down a certain path. I think that might be one of the bigger restrictions. But, again, overall, I would just say that 401ks are designed to accumulate assets during your working career. And while in some cases it might make sense to keep into the 401k, leads us to our third option. So the third option we want to talk through, Brian, is, rolling that 401k balance into an IRA. Or you mentioned, some folks might have Roth IRA balances, or moving that into the Roth IRA as well. So again, rolling your 401k into an IRA just allows you to maintain that tax deferred status. So there's no tax complications or tax inhibitions that you're going to come across at that point, right? If you cash it out, yes, but if you roll it over, and the key word is being rolled over, you're not going to have any tax consequences. You're just going to continue that tax deferred status, but you're likely going to gain access to a broader range of choices and more flexibility, more investment options that you have out there. So I think, what we've seen, at least in a lot of instances, this is the most common route people will end up going, rolling it into an IRA, especially those people who are working with a trusted advisor. And again, this is because of some of that flexibility it gives you. If you think about it, the name of an IRA, or what that means, it's an individual retirement account. So, it's not wide open, the Wild West in terms of rules, but it eliminates most of those potentially restrictive rules that many 401ks might have for retirees. So basically, you can take what you want when you want. And the second option, or the second component of it, really is, you have that open canvas, so to speak, of investment options that you can use.
Right.
In IRAs, you can invest in nearly anything that's out there, whether it's, almost any mutual fund or exchange traded fund, very popular vehicles. You can invest, if you want to, in individual stocks or bonds. And while even getting, much more complicated, you can even get into more eccentric investments. Some people own rental real estate properties within an IRA. That gets really complicated, and we're not suggesting that that's a good route for most people. But again, just sort of highlights that flexibility within the IRA structure.
Yeah, and Tracy, you mentioned, which is really important, when you do a rollover from one qualified retirement plan account to another, like you said, there's no tax consequences. So you don't have
Yeah.
to worry about a tax bill. But I think it's also important to point out that even if you're under the age of 59 and a half, let's say you retire early, which is great,
Yeah.
no penalty either. I know people get afraid of moving their money out of a workplace retirement plan before 59 and a half and fears of penalty. I just
Yeah.
think I wanted to mention real quickly that if you do that rollover, same thing, penalty won't apply as well.
Exactly. Yep, and lots of flexibility again. So let's sort of transition now that we outlined those. Really, those are the three options you have, right? sort of framing some questions that I think, folks should ask themselves to help with that decision. So, the first question of that one, I would say is what are the costs? So, Brian, why don't you talk us through some thoughts on that question?
Yeah, well, like with anything else, Tracy, cost is always a huge consideration, right? So it is important to kind of look at your all-in costs,
Yeah.
which can be a little bit tricky to pin down in a 401k plan. But when you think about fees in a 401k, they're often spread across record-keeping fees, custodial fees, the bank who's holding the plan assets, investment advisory fees, the fund expenses themselves, those investment expenses. So there's a lot of things going on there under the hood, and you can normally find these fees outlined in certain plan documents that are available to you as a participant in the plan. But if you're not sure and you can't find it, ask. Make sure you ask that question of your employer or of your providers to have a true understanding of what the fees are associated with that plan. Many 401ks have become more affordable in recent years, but the costs still do vary, and it's important to note that a lot of employers, while they may cover the cost of the plan during your working years, and many pass it along to participants the whole time. But even those that cover the fees while you're working, once you're no longer working for that company, they stop paying those fees for you. So you will pay your share of fees as a former employee of that company. IRAs, though, of course, can certainly be cost effective, though, the fees in an IRA may depend on your investment choices and whether or not you're working with an advisor.
Yeah, and I would just say as a side note to that, working with an advisor, advisors don't work for free. Some folks will say, "Well, my advisor doesn't charge a fee." Well, they're working on commission, or there's some way they're making money, right? But a good trusted advisor, from a cost of advice structure, should provide value that should exceed that fee you pay her or him, right? So ideally, having that good advisor managing your retirement portfolio should yield better results even after fees are considered than you can do on your own.
Mhm.
From that standpoint, absolutely, fees is a massive consideration, which
Yeah.
is why we sort of led that maybe as the first question to consider. So the
Yeah, and
second,
often overlooked, Tracy, right? I mean, it's just something that
absolutely,
they're a lot of times they're not right in front of you. People don't
yeah.
ask, and they could be potentially throwing away a lot of money just in fees alone. Yeah.
Yeah, completely making sure that you're, knowing exactly what you're paying, as you mentioned.
Yep.
So that next question really becomes about the investment choices, or which of these three options gives me the right investment choices that I want to do. So if you think about it from, within a 401k, you have a fund menu, right? It's a designated set of funds, and you can select from. As I mentioned a few moments ago, IRAs normally offer a much wider selection of investments, sort of open architecture. That can be a benefit, and maybe it's not an important one, but for some, maybe it is. And also can be a risk if you're not sure how to navigate all those options at that point. IRAs, give the flexibility in terms of to figure out however you want to invest. Generally, that you can. So recently, my son and I were in Austin, Texas, and we were at a barbecue joint. That's where you got to go, unless you're a vegetarian. But when you're in Texas, you got to get some Texas barbecue,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
so Brian, guess what they serve at the Texas barbecue joint?
Well, I'm gonna guess they probably had some barbecue on the menu.
Yeah, yeah. How about that? So, like other investments, they serve a specific type of food, right?
Mhm.
So, if I was in the mood for, let's just say, seafood, even fish tacos, whatever it is, I was just completely out of luck that night, right? So, similar with 401ks, there's a limited menu that is out there, while an IRA sort of allows you to invest in most things. So just bringing it, into bringing that to light a little bit. But I would say, speaking of flexibility,
Yeah, the next question we're going to address is which option gives me the right amount of flexibility and control. Now I'm hungry for barbecue, by the way. Tracy, thanks a lot for that. But yeah, so what option gives me the right amount of flexibility and control? And I will say this, IRAs really are flexible in a lot of ways. Within an IRA, you can do things like Roth conversions. We won't get into the specifics of that right now, but
Yeah.
it's a real thing, and people do it. Setting up your own withdrawal schedules, taking monthly payments, quarterly payments from your IRA, really easy to do. And even rebalancing your account can be more streamlined in an IRA. With that said, though, many 401k plans do offer improved tools in these areas, and some 401k providers offer different withdrawal features that may or may not be desirable to you based on your income needs in retirement. So we don't discount the 401k plan right away when thinking about flexibility. And related to flexibility, the next question to consider is how important is convenience and consolidation?
Yeah.
And the truth is, Tracy, everyone values convenience differently, right? For some, it really helps to stay with what's familiar. My 401k's been doing great. I like the provider's website. They got great customer service. I'm just leaving things alone.
Yeah.
And for others, it means kind of choosing an account that aligns well with their broader financial picture, or maybe it's part of an advisor relationship. So again, convenience, consolidation means a little bit of something different for everybody. One important thing to note that, many people collect retirement accounts from multiple plans over the years. You work for several employers, you got a bunch of different accounts at different places, maybe IRAs. And some people certainly find it easier to consolidate everything into fewer accounts to really make that income planning easier. And that is typically our recommendation as well. There's nothing wrong with having all those accounts out there during your working years, doing a little bit of different things investment wise, if that's what you prefer. But once you're retired and you start, getting ready to take those withdrawals from your accounts, having one account really does simplify things and is often the preferable approach.
Yeah, simplification is certainly
Mhm.
something that benefits a lot of folks at that stage of life.
Yeah.
So the last question that we think is important to ask yourself when you're in this situation, is regarding taxes. How will my selection impact my tax situation? As we said earlier, if you take a lump sum, that cash distribution up front, significant negative tax implications, right? And if you have a sizable balance, that's a ton of unnecessary tax implications
Hmm.
in that first year.
Yeah.
So again, normally that's not a good option or approach for most people. But here at Conrad Siegel, we often like to look at retirement income really through three buckets, and we sort of break it up from a tax perspective. The traditional bucket, that's traditional 401ks or IRAs. The Roth bucket, which is generally that's after tax money, right? And that could be 401ks or Roth IRAs. And then the third bucket is, a taxable brokerage account type thing, something that's not tax preferred or tax deferred from that standpoint. So coordinating all those three type accounts, and some people have money in each of those three buckets, and that gives you more flexibility. And some people have, money in two of those buckets, or maybe just one of them. But if you do have that, flexibility from a tax standpoint, can have a big impact on your tax bill. And again, a good advisor certainly can help with that. And also, as Brian you mentioned, once you hit that age range of 73 to 75, the IRS requires those required minimum distributions. So if
Hmm.
you're planning ahead for that, you can also help do some savvy planning that can help you manage some future taxes. Now, when somebody retires, most of the time, many people will need to start taking withdrawals from those retirement accounts to replace their income, right? After
Sure.
all, that's the point of saving for retirement.
Hmm.
However, some might have other income sources that they can tap into. And again, the point is, in those situations, depending on your tax situation, it could make sense to take money out of one of those retirement account buckets before you're required to, before age 73 or 75, wherever you're in. And again, that could be prudent, but again, something to work on, think through, and a good advisor can help you work through there. But the bottom line again on all of these items, Brian, it depends on many factors and of course your specific situation.
Yeah, it really does, Tracy. And again, it goes back to the point that a good advisor is really worth their weight in gold once you retire. It's just you've worked so hard your whole life. You're ready to go on easy street. Do you really want to
Yeah.
be thinking about tax implications? So,
Yeah.
yeah, let somebody who does this for a living and has your best interest in mind really help you out with that. I know that's my plan for when I retire in about 15 years or so. But yeah, so as we wrap up today, let's talk as we always do about some action items. We talked about those three main options within your 401k for when you retire. And remember, those are take a full cash distribution, leave your money in the 401k plan right where it is, or roll it into an IRA or a Roth IRA.
Yeah, and again, as you consider those options, the questions that we also work through is thinking about the cost, right? What are those costs involved? Which option gives me that right investment choices, how I want to, invest appropriately for my situation? Do I have that right amount of flexibility and control? Is consolidation an important factor, right? Do I multiple accounts and would that offer more convenience if I do consolidate? And then ultimately, that fifth question is again about taxes. How will my choice impact my tax situation? So, as we said several times now, there's no one size fits all answer for what you do with your 401k
Right.
when it retires. And, what matters is just taking the time, planning, thinking through it, understanding your options, weighing those trade-offs, and really choosing that path. We talk about that path that Joe took at the beginning, in
Mhm.
its story, which path aligns with your goals, your tax strategy, and really how you want to manage your money in retirement.
So Tracy, the last thing I want to mention as we close out for today is if someone is listening to this podcast and they are facing this decision right now, you're
Yeah.
getting ready to retire and you're still not quite sure what you want to do with your 401ks, there is a link in the show notes where you can schedule a quick meeting with our team about your 401k, and we can go over all those options with you again and make sure we're giving you some guidance that is pertinent to you and something that aligns with where you'd like to be in retirement. So definitely reach out to us regarding that or any other questions you may have related to retirement. You can reach us at podcast@conradsiegel.com. We are always here to help. It's what we love to do. And, please feel free to share this podcast with your friends, family members, coworkers. And if you're so inclined, if you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star review and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for tuning into today's show. The Real Talk Retirement Show is created and produced by Conrad Siegel, an advisory firm that specializes in helping people prepare for retirement and beyond. If you want to learn more about our work or meet the team, you can visit conradsiegel.com. Information on this show is for educational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment, tax, or legal advice. Before making decisions, you should consult with the appropriate professionals for advice that is specific to your situation.